Get your man the flute to play song, the fuck.
Diagwitch everyone, Gajima Tashiv, and welcome back to episode number 109 of the Inline G Flute podcast with me, your host, motherfucking Inline G. 109 episodes. Do you know 109 is a prime number? In fact, it is a centered triangular prime number, which means that 109 objects can be arranged in a perfect triangular shape, but cannot be divided into any smaller equal groupings. And I'll be fucked if I know what that means. Guess who couldn't sleep last night and was down a Wikipedia hole about fucking centered prime numbers? I still don't know what that means. What does that mean? Perfect triangular shape, but cannot be divided into any smaller equal groupings. What does it mean and why does it matter? Anyway, couldn't sleep last night, lads. That's the hole I was down. And in my sleepless state, I did what I always do. I go down several Wikipedia holes. And to be honest, that is how 90% of the Inline G podcast is created, the solo episodes. I go down these holes, I follow them, I pull on the string, and I see what's at the end of it. And sometimes I have to throw it in the bin. But a lot of the time, I just run with it. But not today. This is not an Inline G Wikipedia hole episode today. Today's it's a much different episode than what we're used to here. It's very reflective. It's actually quite serious, this episode, and I'm really looking forward to getting this off my chest, by the way. But today's episode is spawned from this book. Now, if you're watching on Spotify with the video version or YouTube, you'll see it. If you're not, if you're on the audio version only, the book is called Wibb, A Flute for Life, written by Edward Blakeman. Now, it's a beautiful little cover that was designed by Mr. William Bennett himself. The book is about William Bennett, okay? You all know who William Bennett is, renowned English flute player. If you're not a flute player, he's a pretty big deal in the flute world. He died a couple of years ago. He's very big in the sort of 80s, 90s, 70s, 2000s. Very influential figure in the British flute world. One of the big ones. Now, William Bennett, this is the blurb at the back, is internationally renowned as one of the greatest flute players of our time. In a glittering career spanning 6 decades, he has toured the world performing and teaching to universal acclaim. This book explores his extraordinary lifetime devoted to the flute and for the first time presents Wibb in his own words. Now, Edward Blakeman, who wrote the book, is head of music at BBC Radio 3, a former chairman of the British Flute Society. He is editor of The Flute Player's Companion and numerous other music editions, and author of Taffanel, Genius of the Flute, which apparently is great. I haven't read that yet, but apparently it's fantastic. So, there we are. There's the book. Now, I started this a few weeks ago, and I put a story up on Instagram because I read the first few chapters and I fucking hated it. And I put it up on Instagram to tell everyone, I'm going to do a review of this book and I hate it. I'm going to tell you all why I hate it. And you all loved it. You were gobbling it up like cheeky wee, sneaky wee, dirty wee somethings. I don't even know what yous are. I've lost my mind today, lads. It's far too early in the morning for this. I'm recording a podcast in the fucking morning. But I put it up on Instagram and you guys loved it. You were like, oh, Gareth's going to be bitchy. And I'm like, yeah, Gareth's going to be bitchy. And you're all going to love it. And then, well, something happened. But we'll get to that. But why did I hate this book at the start? Because in the first few chapters, the whole thing was aggressively English and aggressively middle class in its humor. That very English middle class humor of talking about crumpets and hats and all that shite. It just gets my goat up, man. Some of the words, some of the phrases they use is so like eccentric. It feels like they're trying to be Oscar Wilde, and it's just like, ugh. My Irish rebellion comes out in me. I just can't stand that. So I read the first few chapters on my way up to Dortmund, and then I thought, I need to finish this book. Even if I'm not enjoying it, I need to make a podcast episode on it. I will go and finish the fucking book. So away I went to the pub, of all places. Now, I didn't go drinking, by the way. I didn't go drinking. I went to the pub. My favourite pub here in Cologne, as you all know, is a place called Barney Valley's. I pop in there. The staff are great. I know them all there. It's usually empty. I've got a lot of free time at the minute because there's no schools, no teaching, no performing, no rehearsals for another week or two. So I went into the pub and I sat down. I was the only one there. I ordered myself a nice big pint of water and I got a takeaway coffee. And I sat for 3 hours and read the entire fucking book. The whole thing. And it was just myself and the bartender there, who's called Lucas. Great man for that. Great man to chat to as well. Another Irishman, very intelligent man, very well educated on politics. And I thought, I'm going to talk to him about this because I was saying, Lucas, I don't know what it is about this book, but the humor, that English humor, is making me so angry. Why is it making me angry? Why does it annoy me? Is it classist? Is it colonial? Is it arrogant? And now before you know it, you've got two Irish lads sitting in the pub at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday starting a fucking revolution. I'm just sitting there getting raging, just getting so angry. Like, man, why am I so angry? I'm like, I hate the English and blah, blah, blah. Bear with me, by the way, if you're English. It does get better. And then I started thinking, like, what does it mean to be Irish? And why do I view it as almost superior to English? And why is it so different? And what is the difference in the national psyche of Ireland compared to England, or even to Germany or to France or to the United States? I was deep down this hole, lads. I was deep down this. So after a few hours of that, I left the pub. And I felt like shit. I felt so sad. My general mood, by the way, in the last 8 months, my general mood has been wonderful. And that's not an accident, okay? I have a general like mental health routine that keeps myself mentally strong and ready to go. I've been prone to mental health issues in the past, so I make sure I just keep it in check. Just do a couple of little things. But a few things have happened recently in my personal life and with my family and et cetera, that have made, I can feel my mental health start to slip a little bit, just a little bit. Nothing major, but I've got like, the anxiety's creeping back in a little bit day to day, and I'm getting annoyed at strangers, and I'll either mask it or I'll use humor to frame it in a way that helps me deal with it. But I became aware of this even more strongly on that day I left the pub, having read this book about William Bennett, and I had to give my head a good fucking wobble. I had to shake it because I thought, man, this isn't right that you're feeling like this. And I know it's funny and I know it's cool maybe to be annoyed at things, but it's not really. And if you're going to make a podcast episode on this, you need to fucking wise up. So first thing I did was on the way home on the train, I stuck in the AirPods and I listened to a bit of William Bennett. I thought this might help me. I listened to a bit of Wibb. Even the name Wibb was starting to piss me off, man. But I went through and I saw, I've read a lot about Clifford Benson, his collaborative pianist, in this book. We'll get something together. We'll do a recital thing. I found the Poulenc Sonata. And I love the Poulenc Sonata. I thought, great. And especially that middle movement has an amazing effect on me. So I thought, this'll maybe help frame things. And lads, honestly, listening to that recording, I melted. I fucking melted. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous flute playing. I mean, so tender, so delicate, so sweet. It was just wonderful flute playing. And it really changed my opinion on things and got me thinking a lot. So since then, I spent a bit of time sort of getting my mental health routine kicked up a notch, doing a bit more walking, less time on the phone. By the way, lads, the phone is the fucking devil. Like, I wonder sometimes at night why I can't sleep when I've been sitting up to 3:30 in the morning watching videos of gypsies in West Cork fight each other. And I'm like, I can't sleep. Fucking wired watching lads called Billy Joe box their heads off each other down a side street. And I'm like, why can't I sleep? And I just don't have the mental space for the phone anymore. I had that episode with Sylvain Labarde, the sports psychologist, and he talked about chaining good habits to activate the dopamine receptors in our brain and that reward system, but in a healthy way to get to productivity and to be incredibly productive. I do that. I have a little routine that I go through, especially on days where I don't have much work, where I'll get up. First thing I do is get up, out the door, 10,000 steps, hour-long walk, happy days. On the way back, I grab myself a little takeaway oat latte. It's lovely. And I go back home, I open up a book and I read. And that's it. Try to not even fucking look at the phone during this time. Now, reading, I do love reading good literature. I love reading flute books, but they're not fun. They're a little bit different. They're work. Most of the time, I'm actually reading novels about gay ice hockey players. I joined a book club. I'm in 2 book clubs. I joined a real book club, like a serious one, and then I joined a book club for smut books, which I've never read before. But because in the real book club, there was a person there who was there just to support the book club, and I said, have you read the book? And they said, no. And then I said, do you read in general? And they said, yes. And I said, what kind of books do you read? And they said, they're not appropriate for the book club. And I said, tell me more. And they said, gay ice hockey novels. And I said, how many of them are there? And they went, Gareth, you have no fucking idea. There's thousands. And there is. So we started a dirty book club and we read ice hockey novels about gay lads who just hammer the life out of each other, just knocking the bells out of each other, just absolutely going at it. After every match, just pulling the wires off each other, pulling the middle out of themselves all day. And here, I didn't know you could tug each other off that much, but here, we're not here to judge. Oh, man. Should I delete that? Anyway, my grandmother listens to this podcast. But anyway, I do a bit of reading. Now, normally that's enough, because after that, I'll go teach, I'll go practice. I have things to do to fill my day. But at the minute, because I haven't got much on, the old black dog, I can feel it creeping up over my shoulder when I've got nothing on. I need to socialize. Like, it's incredibly important to me. Every day I need to get out of the house and meet someone. I need to interact with a new person every single day. But I've done a few days of that, and I regulated my nervous system. I'm much more chill, and I'm feeling a bit more like myself. I'm not happy all the time, but I'm content. And contentness is a lovely feeling. So I'm walking about with regulated emotions. By the way, a quick note on that, by the way, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, Gareth's one of those people that says, oh, if you've got mental health issues, just go for a fucking walk. I'm not saying that at all. I have a mental health routine to keep my mental health in check. In the same way that I don't go to McDonald's every day and I save my pints for the weekend. Because if I don't, I'm going to die. That's what I do with my mental health routine. If you're in the throes of depression or you have mental illness, going for a walk will do fuck all. It will do nothing. If you have mental illness or you're in the throes of depression, you need to go get help, okay? Do not think the 10,000 steps and reading a book about gay ice hockey players is going to fix your depression. It's not. I tried. So, I had written this whole episode in the pub. I was going to elaborate on it. And now, after all that, I've written a brand new episode. A brand new episode, which is kind of spawned out of that. It's a much more compassionate, kind, caring episode. The kind of episode I want to write. It's good for Gareth. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Because I know you love that sweary bad boy. But I don't want to be a dick for the sake of being a dick. This should be a warm space. The Inline G podcast should be a warm place for you to come, feel entertained and happy afterwards, and go about the rest of your day in a wonderful fashion. So, let's get into this book, lads. I'm going to rally through a quick review here. Actually, do you mind, before I do the review of the whole book, I'm going to do my Patreon read. So, regular listener, skip ahead a minute. If you're new around here, lend me your ears for just a wee minute. The Inline G podcast is free, and it always will be free. That is a guarantee. However, if you wish to donate to the podcast, you can now do so through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address, and for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. It costs €5 a month. I do everything around here on my own in this podcast. Audio production, video production, graphic design, script writing, everything. Every single part of it is the definition of a small independent podcast. If you listen to every episode and you thought at the end of the month, Jesus, I really enjoyed that. I got 4 hours of entertainment because it comes out every single Friday. I really enjoyed that. I'd buy Gareth a pint to say thank you. You can do it digitally. So you'll send me €5 a month on Patreon. With that, you're keeping this podcast alive. You're paying me for my work as an artist, first of all, because this podcast is a lot of fucking work. And I don't do it for my own health, all right? It's nice to get a payment, okay? Because there's no sponsors on this podcast. I've declined them all. I really believe that the Inline G podcast should be free as well. But also, sponsors want me to change the subject. I can't talk about certain things. I can't talk about mental health, for example. I can't say anything controversial. I can't swear. And that's not Inline G. I don't want them to control the content that we have here. We are now the biggest flute podcast in the world. And we are 100% listener funded. You guys are paying for it. That's fucking class. That is rock and roll. We are building a community. It's amazing. So if you can afford to sign up, it's €5 a month. You can sign up and unsubscribe immediately and just pay for 1 month. There's no weird fees, no hidden things, no contract. Please go and do it. It makes the world of difference to have an income from this podcast. The world of difference. So if you can afford it, it's €5 a month. Please do it. If you can't afford it, times are hard. You might be a musician, saving the pennies. €5 a month might be a little bit too much for you. That's okay. Someone else is paying so that you don't have to. It is a system based on kindness and on kindness. Thank you very much. So, Wibb, the book. Now, it's divided up into different chapters, and it's very interesting. The first chapter is Beginnings, talks about Wibb's career, his life as a child. Then it goes into Teachers, which is very interesting. It goes into a chapter specifically for Paris. Then we move on to Orchestras, Heroes, Recordings, Teaching, Playing, Flutes. There's all that stuff. It's all organized into chapters, and it's a conversation with him during it. Now, I've got a few notes of things I really liked about this book. There was a lot of things I really did enjoy about it. The things at the start that I didn't enjoy, I don't know, man. The drawings and all were a bit much to me. Like, his childhood sounds very lovely, but it sounds like the childhood of a very rich, spoiled child who can just afford to play the flute and draw and go to boarding school. And there's something about that doesn't sit well with me. But that's a me problem, not a you one. If you're going to read this book, honestly, you can skip all that. Unless you give a fuck about that kind of stuff, skip it. It's not worth it, okay? The flute playing stuff really starts on Teachers. Now, there's a lot about Geoffrey Gilbert, a man I would have loved to have met. The real father of the English flute school, it seems, and a wonderful, wonderful man, and I would have loved to have known more about him. He does talk about Marcel Moyes as well. and his meetings with Moyes. What's very interesting about the teachers section is we don't really remember this at the time. I'm going to talk about this later when I talk about my favorite recordings, but the French flute school is so standard now that we forget what it was like before the French took over. So the old English flute school, which would have been knocking about up until the sort of 70s, until Geoffrey Gilbert sort of started to change things, was an entirely different school of flute playing and was viewed as the superior one for a long time. Now, in the English school, they all played wooden flutes, very traditionally. The wooden flutes don't have the homogeneity that the metal flutes do. So they have a very different sound. They're much more delicate, I find. To be honest, I find them shite. I'm going to be honest. I think the wooden flutes back in those days sound like absolute pish, in the same way that I think Baroque flutes don't really sound that great. But anyway, the French came along with their metal flutes, and the big difference as well was expression and vibrato. The old English school banned vibrato, essentially. It was a bad word. The French school really embraced it. Wibb was kind of ahead of his time in this, because nowadays it's so standard to play with vibrato and to play with an expressive sound and to play a metal flute. Back in those days, especially studying in London, you had to go against the system to go and play with this sound and to play in this style. Everyone in England was telling you not to do that, and you went against it. That's kind of cool, and it puts it into a little bit more perspective about who this man was and the achievements he had and how influential he was. Now, you'll also find out in this book, you get more of it from Jimmy's book, but Jimmy Galway and William Bennett were running about London at the same time. They played in orchestras together, they took jobs from each other, they auditioned together, they had beer together, they had a great time. So you can sort of get an image of what the flute playing scene was in London at that time. So the teacher section is amazing, okay, because it does talk about Gilbert going into his time in Paris and his French teachers. Now, the Paris section is very interesting about which players were knocking about Paris at the time, how they differed within themselves before the Moyes, Gobert, Taffanel route took over and became the dominant one in the flute world. Before then, there was other players. There was Leroy and there was Gaston Crunel and people like that. A little bit different in how they approached the flute. And we forget about these things, but now you're getting live experience from it. Next up, there is orchestras. That is a very interesting section because, for example, William Bennett takes a position with an orchestra in Manchester for a while. It's not the BBC Northern, or no, it's the BBC Northern now, isn't it? Fuck, I always forget. It's the Halle now, but it used to be the BBC Northern. So he takes a job up in London, which also pissed me off a little bit because I really believe that regional orchestras should have regional players. They shouldn't be hiring players to travel up from London. It's not good for the orchestra. They should have regional players when possible. Southern people coming up from England, coming from London, going to the north and taking the positions up there doesn't sit well with me. In the same way that I don't need to see English players, especially London-based ones, go to take the Scottish jobs or the Welsh jobs or the Irish jobs. Because the players from those areas, it should be a benefit that you're from that area. You know the orchestra, you know the culture. That should hold a little bit more weight than what it does. So that pissed me off a little bit. But, you know, if I was in his shoes when I took the job, obviously I fucking would have. It talks about his time in Sanders Wells, a couple of other orchestras, Philharmonia, etc., etc. Very interesting chapter about how they approach music. How fucking easy it was to get a gig back in those days. Man, people were playing in orchestras like nothing, and they were getting paid well for it. And they were doing loads of recording projects, and they were having a brilliant time. They were doing fucking concertos and everything. They were having a great time in the 70s and 80s, man. It was a wonderful time to be an orchestral musician. Next up, he talks about heroes. Now, that chapter is one that I really enjoyed because he talks about his different influences from different sources, people like Yehudi Menuhin. I think it is so cute that one of his heroes that he puts in this book is Clifford Benson, his collaborative pianist, the guy he does all his recordings with, the piano player. You would imagine you would view him as an equal, but he's in the heroes section. And when you go to listen to the recordings of William Bennett, Clifford Benson died. I can't remember what year now, God forgive me, but William Bennett did make recordings with other pianists afterwards. They're always wonderful, and he made some with before Benson, but the ones with Benson are just magic. They're fucking class. I actually think they're severely underrated how good a duo those guys are and how brilliant Clifford Benson is and how much of an impact he has on William's style, because he talks frequently about taking a turn. Not the same thing as the Irish taking a turn. Taking a turn is about to die. You're about to clock out. But he says taking a turn in in Baroque music to take a romantic turn in certain phrases. And you can hear that little edge of expressiveness that comes into some of the recordings. And you think, yeah, that's Clifford Benson. He said to do that. Incredibly interesting. I really enjoyed that chapter. This is the bit where I started to enjoy the book. Now, the next bit is flutes. This is the best bit of the entire fucking book, lads. It is fucking class. Because First of all, he does talk about metal influence in the playing, okay? Because this is a common argument on the internet for people that don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. So he says, does metal influence the playing? Very definitely the metal influences it. To me, gold is a very hard metal, particularly 9-carat gold, and it induces a thinness in the high register, which, as I said, I couldn't overcome. I actually had Cooper take the tube off my gold flute and rebuild it with a silver tube. However, it sounded exactly the same in the silver tube, so I abandoned it altogether. So I may not have been that at all. But gold wasn't my favourite at all. There are plenty of gold flutes which sound pretty good up the top, but I haven't been lucky with the ones I've had. So, William Bennett went in on the does the material matter? You're fucking right, it does. What was the next one he did? Oh, that was an example of something I hated. I probably shouldn't have put this in now. I probably should have deleted that. But he said he brought a Gazzoloni style head joint to Jeffrey Gilbert, and Jeffrey Gilbert said, oh, the mouth hole is bigger than a lavatory seat. I go, fucking, who says lavatory, man? Fuck up, you English. Okay. Gareth, come on. Look after your mental health here. No point to get annoyed, but Jesus Christ. He does have a little bit in here about Baroque flutes. Now, this is great. So, at that time, we were starting to get the beginnings of the revival of the historically informed performance and people playing on period instruments. So, the flutes that would have been played in the 1700s. He says, I don't like what I heard from Baroque flutes. I thought it sounded appalling. I haven't changed. The sound is so unequal through the instrument, and the players do funny little swells and things which don't help the line. Mind you, they're fighting to play somewhere near the right note, and some of them can play well. I don't like it though. I'm so much in love with the way the good French players played 60 to 100 years ago, and I can't see any need to go back further. But I don't think the Baroque players do go back to the Baroque way. I think they've invented a new style. Of course, they are critical of players who use vibrato because so many flute players now use vibrato totally indiscriminately, and it's good to have somebody to make them think. But I don't think that the Baroque crowd has come up with what the Baroque crowd has come up with has produced anything very exciting yet. Not to excite me anyway. So, yeah, I actually agree with you entirely, Mr. Bennett. So the flutes chapter is amazing. Again, because we take so for granted how good our flutes are these days. Back in the 70s and 80s, that was the beginnings of these instruments really coming into what we know as the modern flute and how commercially available they are. They weren't back then. This is fucking fascinating to read on that. Now, chapter 7, he talks about music, and he has a great quote about Wagner, which I want to read because I love when people shit on Wagner, man. It's so much fun when people shit on Wagner. He's actually talking about teaching. Sorry, this chapter is on teaching. So William Bennett, talking about teaching, the first thing to recapture is the basic idea that the flute is your voice, and that for the flute to sound well, it is important that your body is held in the same way as when you sing or project your voice. So the first thing you have to do is sing. Wagner is not necessary, ever. Sing a note or a phrase or arpeggio or a tune until you feel happy with it. Big up. I love that. Fuck Wagner. Fuck Wagner. It's class. Now, what do I have next? That's all the notes I made on this, actually. The playing section is wonderful. Oh, you should really listen to the playing read the playing section. It's wonderful. He talks about the intonation on the flutes, how you used to know that back in the day. It used to be a well-known thing in London that if you were a William Bennett student, you would tell because you had like fucking plasticine on a hole, or you had a hole half covered over, or something was shaved off a key. He was always looking to get the absolute epitome of intonation on the flute, which is the most important thing. Because the quality of tone is so affected by good intonation, truly good intonation. I don't mean just playing in tune with the tuner. I mean genuinely beautiful intonation, which is an art. He talks a lot about it in here. Again, you will read this and think, fuck, we are so lucky to have what we have now. But it makes you think about intonation, and it considers it. And he words it so beautifully. He was an excellent pedagogue. So I would really, really get on that chapter on playing. If you're only going to read one chapter, read that one, because it goes straight into your playing. It's directly applicable. Tomorrow you'll be sounding fucking great. So, I enjoyed the book overall at the end when I got past my own personal hang-ups. And that's probably good. Because I'm getting older. And I can't keep being like this. I can't keep being cynical all the time. So, I'm sorry that I didn't shit on him the way he's all expected. I wanted to as well. I really wanted to. But man, I'm in a good mood, and I shouldn't be doing these things to myself. Now, one thing we do have to be careful of here, and it's one thing I do want to talk about, and I put it in directly from my first notes, is hero worship. And we have to be very careful of this in the classical music industry. It's been a buzzword that's been running about my head recently because of a post I actually saw on Facebook. So Catherine Needleman shared this post, and it's by a person called Abby Conant, who is a trombonist and writer. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was not familiar with Abby until this post was shared. She looks incredible. Really enjoyed going through her page. Very vocal about Gaza as well, which is lovely to see from classical musicians. Not many people have the balls to do that, so I really enjoy her content. But she wrote this thing that was shared a lot and said, it was a fairly recent article by a violist in the Chicago Symphony who noted that there was often no one good enough for them on auditions. By contrast, the Met always hires whoever wins their auditions and remains a world-class orchestra comparable to any symphony orchestra in America. Part of the Chicago mindset is centered around the myth of the great artist who rises above all others. This is largely a manifestation of the music industry, which actively promotes personality cults and hero worship as a marketing strategy until it becomes a habit of mind among musicians. The marketing even appeals to nationalism and the great artist as a manifestation of the genius seed of the nation state. People then want to bask in the aura of these greats, even though they are largely marketing constructs, and even though they are often a number of musicians of similar quality. These personality cults also appeal to those parts of the human psyche inclined toward alpha males. We thus note that almost all orchestral tin gods are men and obvious manifestations of the patriarchy. One of the most unfortunate parts of this form of ego inflation and false entitlement has been sexual abuse in classical music. If you want to improve classical music, don't hero worship. That is perfectly written, by the way. That is absolutely bang on. That is the perfect amount of words. It's well explained. It's compassionate. It's clear. There's no sign of passive aggressiveness. It's just fucking bang on. That is the way to get a message across, man. It's brilliant. And it's been stuck in my head for so long. Now, I will say I saw Catherine Needleman share it. I've talked about Catherine Needleman on this podcast before. She's been a guest I've been trying to get on for a while, to be totally honest. You're all probably familiar with her. If you're not, it's well worth going to find her on Facebook. She does a lot of amazing work for women's rights and trans rights as well, to be totally honest, and generally equality within the classical music industry. What I will say is, and I don't want to sound like a dick here, but I really have to clarify this because it worked for me and it might work for you as well. If you're feeling a bit ropey with your mental health, and especially after you're scrolling social media, you feel even more ropey, maybe it's time to take a little break from pages like Catherine Needleman's. Just a little break to get away from it for a while. It sounds harsh, but it really worked for me. I needed a bit of time away from that page. When I went back on it this morning to find that quote, I immediately started getting in a bad mood again. I started feeling depressed. I started getting angry. It's a very difficult place to go if you're not mentally prepared for it. Give yourself that little bit of gentleness and compassion. I get sent links all the time from her page. The minute a flute player is mentioned, I get like 100 links sent to me about what the flute player has done or what's been said and blah, blah, blah. And it's great, and I obviously go in and read it, but I end up sitting there for 25 fucking minutes raging at everyone. Everyone involved in the argument, everything that's going on is ridiculous, and it just gets me so angry on every fucking side. And I get so angry. There is a massive amount of toxicity in that world from every side, but it has to be said, through all that toxicity, if you're willing to wade through it, there is something incredibly positive coming out the other end. You just have to make sure you're okay and in a good mental state to do it. It's tough on the old noggin, all right? So get ready for it, because I know a lot of you are in there. Maybe think about taking a break, okay? It's okay to change your social media so you just have videos of fat raccoons and highlights of the 2006 World Cup. Be gentle, it helps. Now, hero worship. Fuck this hero worship thing. It's a fine line between hero worship and admiration. And we have to be so fucking careful in classical music because it's dangerous in our game. Hero worship is so dangerous because there's a lot of money, there's a lot of influence, and there's a lot of political connections. So it has a different edge when we hero worship these very, very fucking average people. Essentially, hero worship is reverence without perspective, while admiration is respect with perspective. Okay? So you can deeply admire an artist and everything they do whilst also acknowledging that they're fucking human. They are. They have character flaws. They can be dickheads. They can be rude. They can vote for people that they shouldn't be fucking voting for. Ignoring these things purely for the art or because they're a genius is almost obsessive. And you'll just end up having your own self-worth attached to that. And then you're fucked. We see this all the time. An extreme version of this is Donald Trump. You look at Donald Trump could do anything and it feels like his supporters would still support him. He's totally hero worshipped. The Epstein files recently about him being a fucking pedo have changed a few minds now, and even his fans are turning on it, but not enough of them are. The reason isn't because they think he's perfect. The reason is because their self-worth and their identity is attached to him. Acknowledging that he is a fallible person, and that's a fucking gentle word I'm using there for Donald Trump. Acknowledging that he's fallible means that they have to acknowledge within themselves that they are too fallible. It's a very difficult thing to do. That's why we have to be so careful to not hero worship. There's no heroes in classical music, man. We don't do an important job. None of them do. And we're not... Being a great artist is not worth it. The great artists are the fucking composers, all right? We're still just performers at the end of the day. It happens all the time in classical music. Fucking Placido Domingo is running about South America now with doing concerts, doing fucking masterclasses. After what he fucking did. Sure, fucking John Elliott Gardner is back gigging. And he was only slapping people a couple of months ago. And he had a very fucking disingenuous apology, which showed no signs of fucking remorse, sitting there with his fucking dog. We're putting them on pedestals, and taking them off the pedestals means we have to point the finger at the people who put it there, i.e. us. Admiration is different, and perspective is healthy. Now, this book, first few chapters, it gave off big hero worship vibes to me, and I was starting to get worried about that. And you know what? Not even hero worship vibes, it gave off arse-licking vibes. And that makes me even more annoyed. After 2 chapters, I was sitting thinking, fuck me, your man cannot see the sun. He's that far up fucking William Bennett's hole. But that wasn't for her. And that was a reflection of my own character. The more I read it, it's different. Now, there is a boys' club in classical music. This has to be said. We know this. And especially in the flute world, and especially back in those days in Britain, it is a boys' club. And they are pricks, okay? It was, people like William Bennett, Geoffrey Gilbert, Jimmy Galway, Trevor Y, Adrian Brett, Robert Wynne. They're all in that kind of group of the London male flute player scene. I've met nearly all of them. They can all be dicks. They really can. We should not hero worship these people because they can be pricks. Trying to have a pint with them is like fucking watching paint dry. It is. They can be the most boring people when they're not talking about the flute. And they have zero empathy and they're not much fun. So don't put them on fucking pedestals. But this isn't today's episode anyway. We're talking about something else. Today's self-reflection. So I made the choice when I was rereading this book to do it from a compassionate and caring standpoint. And it is a choice. And when I did that, this book is not a masterclass in arse-licking. It is a love letter. It is a man's need to express the absolute love he has for the artistry of another man. Gay. I'm joking. Fuck me, I'm joking. It is beautiful. And lads, fuck knows, we've all done it. We've all done it. Have you ever been dating someone new and you're literally trying to edge their name into every fucking conversation you're having? You're trying to drop it in no matter where you go? We've done that. Jesus Christ, look at me. How many times have I talked about my girlfriend on this podcast? Or even worse, when you get a new teacher and you think they're amazing and you're always banging on about them. People are like sick of that. Like, fuck, maybe you ever shut up about them. But it's that intense desire to share your love and your emotion for something. And it's a really beautiful thing. And to be honest, the world needs more of that. We need more people sharing their love that they have for other people and fucking screaming from the rooftops, this person's class. That's a healthy, good thing. So read the book, lads. Read the fucking book. But choose to read it from a compassionate and kind standpoint. Stay open-minded. This book, when you do it from that viewpoint, is fucking adorable. I mean, it's hardly like I don't do the same thing. Name me one episode of this podcast where I haven't said Magalee's name. And yeah, Magalee Muñoz is mentioned every time in this podcast. Also, by the way, do you have time to talk about this? Fuck it really quickly. You know I'm not going to the NFA, okay, because I get arrested at the fucking border. I'm fucked. Magalee Muñoz is going to the NFA. I only found this out last week. She's playing a concerto. She's going to be there. It is breaking my fucking heart that I'm not going there. I genuinely nearly went to rebook my flights. Because like, no, if Magalee's going, I'm fucking going. Because the idea of seeing her for 4 days is amazing. If you are at NFA, if you're going, fucking get that program. If you see the name Magalee Muñoz, or Mosnier spelled, if you see that name, you circle it in fucking red. You circle it. You put a reminder in your phone. You go to fucking everything she does. You need to learn something about artistry. And then you go there afterwards and say, by the way, Gareth from the Inline G podcast sent me here. Go down it. Now, just quickly, to finish this up, I've been down the William Bennett hole, listening to a lot of recordings. And his playing is very indicative of the time. So you have to accept a few things before you listen to this, okay? You're listening with modern ears. And you need to put those ears aside and listen with a bit of perspective. There is a lot of vibrato, okay? We talked about this, how it came into the English school from the French. There's a lot of vibrato. It compared to modern standards of vibrato, it's almost robotic, okay? But he's not the first person to be guilty of this, okay? Ron Powell, Jimmy Galway, Marcel Moyes, man, you listen to recordings of that, it's measured vibrato. It's very hard for us to hear. Get past it, okay? It's an indication of the time. When you move past it, you will enjoy it, I promise. Because the warmth of tone that William Bennett plays with, there is not a single note he plays that has a pushed sound. It's always perfectly weighted. And he has these beautiful long phrases. Play the game of listening to him really intensely. Listen to a phrase really intensely. The Cantilène, second movement of the Poulenc, perfect example. Listen to where he's putting his phrase, where it gets a little bit louder, where it comes down. And when it comes down, does it stop? Or does it keep going and building and building? Try to figure out where he's putting his phrase, where he wants to say, right, now we're done. Now we're putting a full stop. You would be amazed how long you're holding it for. You double check yourself sometimes going, is he still doing the same fucking phrase? It's amazing. And to be honest, he has a bit of fun with the phrasing. He has a bit of cheekiness to him, a bit of fucking... It's like he's winking at you going, here, you like that, did you? It's a virtuoso of phrasing, which is beautiful. And he beats himself up a lot in this book, by the way, about his tonguing. He's like, I can't tongue, my tongue is terrible. It's not fucking bad, I tell you that, lads. So, recordings to check out. The Poulenc album with Clifford Benson. Absolute must, okay? It's also got the Vidor suite, some Bizet stuff. There's an arrangement of a Mozart thing from Così fan tutte. It's on Spotify. My favourite one on Spotify is Live at Nova Hall. It's another album with Benson. It's a recital. It's got so many other things on it. It's got the Funk Sonata, it's got the Undine Sonata, the Schubert Trockenblumen variations, and the Mignon Fantasy. I think it's got something else as well. I can't remember. Listen to it as an album. Listen to it from start to finish. It's a live recording. First of all, the audio quality and recording quality is fucking amazing on that album, especially for the 90s, the 80s. It's incredible. But listen to it as a performance because you can feel the energy pick up and drop and how he sort of weights his energy to make sure the audience get the big emotional moments in perspective of the entire concert and not just the piece. He's a master at that. It is fucking good. Listen to it in its entirety. Pour yourself a glass of gin and Fanta and enjoy it. Now, the one recording I haven't found yet, which I really need to find, there is a recording of him playing the Beethoven Violin Concerto on flute with the English Chamber Orchestra. It's not on any streaming platforms. I can't even find a CD of it. If anyone has a recording of that they want to burn to send me, please send me. William Bennett playing the Beethoven Violin Concerto, or in that album it's called the Beethoven Flute Concerto, and it's with the English Chamber Orchestra. Please send me it. So, lads, I'm going to end with this note. We'll do this quickly. It's a short episode. The flute is a special instrument. We know this. And it has a special community. A fucking insane community, yes, but special and unique. And the flute is not appreciated outside of our wee world that we put it in. And it's not as appreciated as it should be. But we love it here. And reading books like this will give you a stronger sense of belonging in that world. You draw a connection to these artists that came before you, the greats, and the ones before them, and their teachers, and their styles. And because it's not that big a world, you can trace your own playing back through this. You can say, well, that's why I played with vibrato, because my teacher did this and that, and they heard this. It is beautiful. And it makes you feel part of something bigger, which in the modern world is actually really fucking hard to find. Community is a dying thing these days. Even listening to this podcast, we're in this little world together. It makes a beautiful little community. It's an online one, but it's still a community. A sense of belonging is crucial. So read all the flute books you can, the old ones too. Feel that connection to the artist before, and let it light your fire of inspiration for the music that you're going to create next. Put yourself in that lineage. Be gentle on yourselves. Go listen to some lovely flute. Kiss a wee dog in the head. I'll see you next week. Slan.
Get your man the flute to play so handy fuck.
Crocky Hartler Druids.